$1 million factory machine breaks down. And the CEO? He laughs when a black farmer's son offers to fix it. You? Good luck, kid, he says, mocking him in front of everyone. But what happens next leaves the entire room speechless. Especially when they find out who the boy's father really is. You're not ready for this twist. The sun was blazing hot outside, but inside the factory, the tension was even hotter. A deafening screech ripped through the air as the massive conveyor machine, one that processed over 50,000 units a day, came to a grinding, smoking halt. A blinking red error light flashed across the main floor like a warning siren. Production stopped, so did everyone's breath. Within minutes, Mr. Whitman, the CEO himself, came storming down from his glass office above, his face redder than the emergency lights. He wore a tailored blue suit, his expensive shoes clicking furiously against the metal floor. "Who shut this thing down?" he barked, voice echoing off the steel walls. Silence. Everyone looked at each other. No one answered. No one dared to. The broken machine wasn't just a mechanical issue. It was a ticking financial bomb. Every minute it sat idle, it cost the company thousands of dollars. And with a major shipment deadline looming, the stakes were sky high. Then, a voice, soft but steady, cut through the silence. "I can try fixing it, sir." Heads turned. Standing near the back was a young black teenager, no older than 17. He wore faded jeans, work boots caked in dust, and a plain shirt that clung to his frame from the heat. His skin glistened with sweat, sun-darkened and rugged, the way someone looked after long days working the land. Whitman narrowed his eyes. "You? What's your name, kid?" "Micah," he replied, keeping calm under the CEO's glare. "Micah the mechanic, huh?" Whitman scoffed. His voice dripped, with sarcasm as he waved toward the machine. "Go ahead, knock yourself out. Let's see what a farmer's kid can do with $1 million piece of equipment." Some workers chuckled nervously. Others looked away, uncomfortable with the clear condescension. But Micah didn't blink. He stepped forward, calm as ever, and examined the machine. From the catwalk above, Whitman leaned on the railing, whispering to one of his engineers, "Get the real team ready. He'll break it worse." The engineer nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed on Micah. Because something was different. The kid wasn't guessing. He moved with precision. His fingers ran across the control panel with quiet confidence. He didn't ask questions. He made adjustments, checked the cooling valves, accessed the diagnostic screen, rerouted a safety lock. People began gathering around, whispering. "How's he doing that?" someone asked. "Wait, is that command line code?" "He's bypassing the whole system." Whitman's smirk started to fade. Micah wiped the sweat from his brow and adjusted a circuit panel deep inside the machinery. A few more taps on the touchscreen and click. The red lights turned green. The conveyor belt rumbled to life. The machine worked, and then cheers. Workers clapped, some in disbelief, some in awe. A few even shook Micah's hand as he stepped back from the machine, quietly dusting off his palms. Whitman descended the stairs slowly this time, his face unreadable. "All right," he muttered, approaching the boy. "How the hell did you do that?" Micah looked up, cool and composed. "I study electrical engineering at MIT. I'm on a summer break." Whitman blinked. "MIT?" Micah nodded. "I'm just visiting my dad, Elias Carter. He works in your shipping department." That name hit the CEO like a slap. Elias Carter? He's your father? "Yes, sir." Whitman stepped back, eyes flicking toward the shipping bay, suddenly remembering the quiet man who always nodded respectfully but rarely spoke. Now, he realized, he hadn't just underestimated the kid, he'd underestimated the whole Carter family, and things were about to change. Micah knelt down, beside the massive overheated machine. The scent of burnt wiring and engine oil filled the air, but he didn't flinch. His eyes scanned the control panel, fingers moving with calm precision. He didn't look nervous. He looked like he belonged there. The room had gone dead silent. Workers held their breath. Some crossed their arms skeptically. Others leaned in, eyes narrowed, unsure if they were about to witness a miracle or a disaster. Micah reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small, worn screwdriver, one that looked like it had seen years of use. It was scratched, the grip, worn smooth by time. The kind of tool passed down from a father who fixed things not because it was easy, but because it had to be done. The CEO, Mr. Whitman, stood a few feet away with his arms crossed, barely hiding his amusement. He leaned toward his assistant, muttering just loud enough to be heard. "Give it 5 minutes. He'll be begging for help," he said, chuckling under his breath. Micah didn't even look up. He tapped the touchscreen to bring up the machine's diagnostics menu. A wave of code scrolled across the display, something far too technical for most of the factory floor to understand. Whitman's smile slowly slipped. Micah's hands flew across the interface, bypassing standard menus and diving straight into the system's back end. He navigated the code with ease, isolating the malfunction. Then he spotted the issue, a corrupted subroutine blocking the heat regulator from resetting. With the flick of his wrist, he unscrewed a panel, adjusted a circuit node by hand, and resecured it. "What's he doing?" Whitman asked, now frowning. One of the company's top engineers stepped forward, stunned. "Sir, he's bypassing the system's lockout protocol. That's not standard procedure. That's high-level programming. Whoever taught him that knows what they're doing," Whitman waved a hand dismissively. "Please, he's guessing. Any second now, he's going to fry the whole board. Then you'll see." But Micah wasn't guessing. He initiated a soft reboot, isolated the faulty sensor, and rerouted the processor load through an alternate circuit path, all without blinking. Then, he entered one final command. Click. The red error light vanished. Whirr! The machine roared back to life, louder and smoother than before. The conveyor belt jolted forward. The gears rotated, pistons pumped, lights flicked from red to solid, stable green. The entire factory floor gasped. Then, cheers, loud and genuine. Applause erupted from every corner of the room. Some workers clapped. Others whistled. A few whooped loudly as if their home team had just won the championship. Micah stood up slowly, wiping his hands on his jeans, cool as ever. For the first time in years, Whitman didn't have anything to say. He stood frozen, mouth slightly open, watching a teenager fix what his entire engineering team hadn't dared to touch. Micah nodded to one of the workers beside him. "She's running clean now. Might want to check the thermal levels every few hours just to be safe." The worker, twice Micah's age, nodded with a look of pure respect. "Yes, sir." That "sir" didn't come from fear. It came from awe. Whitman finally snapped out of his trance and stepped forward, forcing a weak laugh. "Well, that's impressive. You must have, watched a lot of YouTube tutorials, huh?" Micah met his eyes and said calmly, "No, sir. I learned this from my dad and from MIT. That was the first time the name MIT hit the air, and it hit hard." Murmurs rippled through the room. Whitman blinked. "MIT?" Micah nodded. "Electrical engineering. I'm on break, just here visiting my father, Elias Carter." That name landed. Like a hammer, all the color drained from Whitman's face. "Elias Carter?" he repeated. Micah just nodded once more. The truth had surfaced, and suddenly the CEO realized this was no ordinary farmer's son. This was legacy. This was talent. This was genius. And Whitman had almost laughed him off the floor. The CEO's face twisted. Half disbelief, half discomfort. His polished shoes clicked against the concrete floor as he marched straight up to Micah, face to face now, no longer smirking. "All right, kid," he said, trying to sound in control. "Spill it. Who are you, really? How did you know how to do all that?" He was just a teenager, standing outside the mall waiting for his dad. But to one cop, that made him suspicious. In less than 5 minutes, he was handcuffed, humiliated, and treated like a criminal, just for being black. But then, the ground shook. A sound roared through the sky. A military jet came out of nowhere. And when it landed, it started like any ordinary afternoon until it turned into a nightmare. 15-year-old Jamal stood outside the local mall, backpack slung over one shoulder, scrolling through music on his phone. School had just ended, and his dad, always a little late, was on his way to pick him up. It was the kind of day where nothing seemed out of place. The sun peeked through scattered clouds, cars rolled by, and the world felt Normal. Jamal wasn't bothering anyone. He was just waiting, like countless other teens had before him in that same spot. Earbuds in, hoodie up, nodding softly to the rhythm. That's all. But peace has a way of shattering when judgment walks in. Flashing red and blue lights bathed the sidewalk in sudden color. Tires screeched slightly as a police cruiser pulled up. The door slammed open, and a white officer stepped out, eyes narrowed, voice sharp. "Hey, you! What are you doing here?" Jamal pulled out one earbud, confused. "I'm just waiting for my ride, sir." The officer took a step closer, already suspicious. "This area isn't for loitering. You don't belong here. Hands behind your back." Jamal's heart dropped. "What? Sir, I haven't done anything." But before the words could even leave his mouth, the officer had spun him around, metal cuffs clicking tight around his wrists. The cold steel bit into his skin. His phone slipped from his hands and hit the ground. The noise, the sound of metal locking, the voice of authority barking orders grabbed people's attention. A few pedestrians slowed down. A woman whispered to her friend. One teen across the street pulled out her phone and started filming, and Jamal just stood there, breath caught in his chest. Was he being arrested? For what? For waiting? Wave of shame and helplessness washed over him. The kind of shame that doesn't come from doing wrong, but from being treated like you already have. His lips trembled, not because he was weak, but because he was scared. And because this wasn't the first time someone looked at his skin and assumed the worst. "Sir, please," he tried again. "I'm a student. My dad is coming to get me." "I'm not here for your stories," the officer cut him off. "You people are always up to something. You people." Those two words stung more than the cuffs ever could. It wasn't just about today. It was about everything he'd learned growing up black in America. That sometimes, it didn't matter how polite you were, or how good your grades were, or how many times your mom told you to always keep your hands visible and speak respectfully. Sometimes you were just wrong in someone else's eyes, and there was nothing you could do to change that in the moment. He tried not to cry. He told himself to be strong. But the tightness in his chest wouldn't go away. The officer talked into his radio, describing him as a suspicious male loitering outside mall property, as if standing still while black was a threat. Nearby, a woman tried to speak up. "Officer, I saw him earlier. He's just a student, he's not bothering anyone." But the officer ignored her, brushing past the truth like it didn't matter. Jamal felt exposed, humiliated. He wished his dad would hurry. He wished someone, anyone, would listen. And most of all, he wished he wasn't so used to this. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Please, Dad, please get here soon." Little did he know the sound that would soon fill the sky wasn't a car engine. It was something far louder and far more powerful. But in that moment, all he could feel was the sting of injustice and the weight of being a child in a world too ready to fear him. Officer Grant pressed the button on his shoulder radio, his tone calm but loaded with bias. "Dispatch. I've got a suspicious black male teen loitering near the mall entrance, possibly casing the area. Proceeding with detainment." Jamal's mouth went dry. "Suspicious?" he asked, barely above a whisper. "I told you. I'm waiting for my dad. He's on his way." Grant didn't even acknowledge what Jamal said. He just scoffed and rolled his eyes, as if he'd heard this 1,000 times before. "Sure, and I'm the president," he muttered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You kids think you can hang around wherever you want and act like you own the place." Jamal felt the heat rise in his face. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't causing any trouble. He was just waiting, just like anyone else would. But he already knew. It didn't matter what he said. Behind him, a small crowd had started to gather. People watched from a distance, some curious, some uncomfortable, some filming with their, phones. His backpack lay forgotten on the ground, one of the straps twisted beneath itself like a collapsed limb. A young woman, no older than 20, stepped forward from the crowd. She picked up the bag carefully, holding it up as if it were proof of Jamal's innocence. "That's his school bag," she said, her voice strong but cautious. "He's clearly just a student. I saw him here earlier. He wasn't bothering anyone." Officer Grant glanced at her but didn't respond. He snatched the bag from her hand and turned back toward his cruiser. You people always have an excuse, he muttered. Those words echoed louder than the sirens in Jamal's head. You people. Jamal flinched, not because he didn't understand, but because he did. Perfectly. That phrase wasn't about him being a student. It wasn't about loitering. It was about the color of his skin. It was about the quiet judgments, the assumptions, the fear people carried in their eyes before they even heard him speak. Jamal bit his lip hard, trying to hold it together. He wasn't going to cry, not in front of them, not in front of this officer who didn't even see him as human. He stared at the pavement, blinking quickly, trying to ground himself. He thought of his mom's voice the night before. Remember what we talked about? Always be respectful. Always keep your hands visible. And no sudden moves, baby. He thought of his dad, always calm and strong, telling him, "It's not fair, son, but the world isn't always ready to see your worth. So until it does, you stay sharp. You stay safe." He had listened. He had followed every rule. He'd done everything right. And yet, here he was, being treated like a criminal for simply existing while black. The people watching didn't know him. They didn't know he was an honor student, that he loved science and sketching sneakers in his notebook, that he volunteered at the community center every other Saturday, that he'd never once gotten detention. They just saw a young black teen in cuffs. He felt small, powerless, like the world had made up its mind about him without even asking who he was. "Please," he tried again, his voice cracking slightly. "I didn't do anything." But Officer Grant wasn't listening. He was already opening the door to the back seat of the squad car, and as Jamal took a shaky step forward, the cuffs tugging against his wrists, he silently begged, "Dad, please, get here, now!" He had no idea that help was already in the sky, and justice was coming faster than anyone could imagine. Just as Officer Grant tightened his grip on Jamal's arm and reached to open the squad car door, a sudden, deep rumble shook the air. But the Carters? They didn't bask in it. They simply turned and walked back toward the loading dock. Just two men, one older, one younger, shoulders square, heads high. And in that moment, no one cared what kind of jeans they wore. That day, the factory didn't just fix a machine. It fixed a mindset. It reminded everyone that brilliance doesn't always come in a business card, that intelligence doesn't always come with a title, and that sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one you never bothered to notice. As for Whitman, he never underestimated a farmer's kid again, and every time he walked past Elias Carter on the dock after that, he did something he never used to do. He listened. They thought he was just a farmer's kid, but he was the future of engineering, raised by a genius they never saw coming. Respect isn't about titles, it's about truth, and sometimes the most powerful minds wear dusty jeans. Real power doesn't boast, it shows up when it matters most. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment. Respect is earned. Subscribe for more powerful stories that flip the script. New episodes every week. Real stories, real justice, real impact.